Hello, welcome to the Northeast Art Collective. I'm Alfie Joey and I'm here to chat to one of the brilliant artists here, Kevin McNicholas, and what a work of art you brought in today.
Thank you.
All of these other brilliant pictures I'm used to seeing. I come and look at your stuff every time I'm here, you know.
Thank you, Alfie. I think that's very kind of you.
No, I do. The first time I came into this gallery, I walked past these things. Those are pretty good photographs. And then I was told they're not photographs, and then I looked again, and you must get this all the time. They're like photographs, they're unbelievable. You've got to see them for yourself. Come into the gallery, it's in Eldon Garden, and enjoy them close up. I mean, obviously you can see them on the website, but to see them just close up is brilliant. Tell me about the new one.
Ayrton was one of my favourite drivers, especially the era where he drove in. Jim Clark was my original favourite driver when I was a little lad, and unfortunately Jim Clark was killed when I was about 14, I think. So the thing I liked about Ayrton was he was, although he was a very, very fierce competitor, he was also apparently a very, very nice bloke as well.
Yeah.
He was very, very religious. Obviously, that I wanted to do sort of something to commemorate him, his ability, and the fact that he was killed on the 1st of May, which was nearly the anniversary of his death. And it was such a tragedy because I remember watching it on TV, and it's one of those instances where you know exactly what you were doing at the time.
Yeah.
It's like the Elvis thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I knew it, and I came across, and I remember Murray Walker saying, when he's crashed, but in a minute you'll see him get out of the car. And unfortunately, he didn't get out of the car. And Professor Sid Watkins, who was the medical guy at the time, was at the side of the car. And I just had a terrible feeling that something was really, really wrong. And even to this day, we don't know what the cause of it was. There's various theories that the steering column broke. I bought my brother Murray a book written by Ayrton Senna for Christmas, and he's reading it now. And Ayrton Senna, who designed some of the cars, he thinks it was a puncture.
Right.
So there's lots of different.
It's become a conspiracy theory almost.
To an extent, yeah. So I wanted to do something. Because as he was one of my favourites, and I wanted to do something a little bit different as well, so I chose that. And it was really a difficult piece to do because...
Was it more difficult or less difficult than the ones of a full car? Because, as you say, that is totally different. All the others are either, that one aside I suppose, they're all distant shots or close-up shots of the cars themselves. To do a close-up shot of someone where you can see every hair in the eyebrow, every lash of his eyelashes.
It was challenging. I wanted to do something which was dramatic, so hence the very, very dark, sombre background. It was challenging to paint, especially the colour yellow. I don't think I'll ever paint anything yellow ever again.
It's a lot of yellow in there. Yeah.
Because going from light yellow to dark yellow and trying to get the shadow in dark yellow was really challenging. But I have to say I did enjoy doing it, and I'm quite pleased with the outcome. I think it's come out all right.
Yeah, I think better than all right. It's perfect. And if people have seen the documentary Senna, he's one of those sports people who I think transcends his sport. Yeah. And even if you're not, I'm not a massive Formula One fan, but I watched that documentary with fascination, and I would put him up there. You know, maybe Roger Federer, Messi, Muhammad Ali. There's a few sports people, and only a very few who transcend the sport, and he's one of them, isn't he?
Well, I almost met him.
Where?
Almost.
Where?
Well, I mean, if you've got the time, the reason I paint was because, as I said, as a boy, I was very interested in motor racing, but I was always sort of frustrated by only being able to watch it on TV or read about magazines. So I thought, how can I get close to the action? How can I meet the people who designed and built the cars? So I had this idea. I thought, right, I could paint, and now my paintings were alright. So I thought, right, I'll paint a picture of a car, and I'll choose somebody to send a photograph of the picture to, and say, you can have the painting in exchange for a visit to the factory. So at the time, my favourite team was Team Lotus, and there was a new guy I just started called Frank Durney, who had just moved from Williams. So I did a painting of Nigel Mansell in Williams, and I took a photograph, sent it to Mr. Durney, and said, you can have it in exchange for a visit to the factory. To my astonishment, he said yes. I couldn't believe it. So I took the painting down, got the train down, changed it to Peterborough, he picked me up at Norwich, had a full day at the Lotus factory, and I thought, well, this is fantastic, I'm onto something here. So I did another painting, this time it was Alan Prost driving McLaren, so I did the same thing again, took a photograph when it was finished, sent it to Ron Dennis, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure about this thing, but again, to my astonishment, he said, yes, I would love to have the painting. So they flew me down to Heathrow, I got picked up at Heathrow. I had arrived 5 minutes after Ayrton had left because they were installing a brand new V12 engine in the chassis, so they were going to Silverstone to test, and he had just left. So I had this guy called Peter Steiner, who was my chaperone for the day. He was the commercial director, and he was with me all day. But at one point, he got approached by a member of staff, and somebody said to the member of staff, said, "Peter, there's a phone call for you." And he said, "I'm with Kevin, I'm busy." So he said, "Kevin, can I take this phone call?" I said, "Yeah, carry on." So he came back a few minutes later and he had a big smile on his face. He said, "You never guess what," he says. "You can put these guys in a car and they can drive them at 200 miles an hour, but ask them to find their hair car in the airport car park and they can't find it." It was Gerhard Berger. He had landed at Heathrow, I think, or that. And that group that had booked a car from you couldn't find it.
So, great story.
So the next thing I did a painting for Nigel Mansell, and he was he had just finished Formula One. He was going across to America to do e-cars. So I was talking to his secretary Sue Membry, trying to get the painting to him. So anyway, at that time I was working at the airport. So I was on a day off and I got a phone call from a colleague saying, "Frank Williams is at the airport." And I thought, "Oh right, okay." So because I was working for security and had access to the apron, his aircraft was parked on stand 1. So the next day I went into work and I found out when the skipper was going on the aircraft. So I approached him and said, "Can I ask a huge favour? I've got this painting for Nigel Mansell. It has to go to Oxford for him to be picked up." He says, "Well," he says, "I can't grant you that favour." He says, "If you come back tomorrow 1 o'clock, you can ask Frank, because we're taking off then." So it transpires that he was visiting his mum, because people don't know that Frank Williams actually hails from South Shields.
Never knew that.
And his mum was still alive, so he used to regularly visit his mum by flying over his aeroplane. So anyway, the next day, I had the painting all wrapped up, and I said, "Mr. Williams, I need a huge favour. I need to have this painting taken to Oxford for Nigel Mansell, the big boy secretary." And he said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, let's have a look." So he said, "Well, yes, I'll do, on good condition you do one for me." So about a year later, when it was finished, I was flown down in a private aeroplane. So it was getting better and better.
Another life, yeah.
I forgot to say I had McLaren took the British Grand Prix that year, so I forgot to mention that. So anyway, I flew down in this private aeroplane and met Frank Williams, and he said, "How much for the painting?" I said, "It's not about the money, it's about the experience."
Yeah.
And he said, "No," he says, "How much?" He said, "Have a nice day." He says, "When you've had a nice day, come back and see us before you go home again and tell us how much you want." So I had a fantastic day watching guys making exhausts from scratch and all that kind of stuff. Went back to see him. He said, "Well, how much?" I said, I forgot. So 3 days later, it was a nice check came in the post.
Yeah.
So that's how I got involved in doing this.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Great story. And if you want to get your hands on this before it is bought by someone from the world of Formula One, imagine that. It could be yours. Get yourself down here. Come and see the collection at the North East Art Collective in Eldon Garden, Newcastle. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks very much for your time.